Here's Ted the tadpole. Okay? He is corrupt. He is of the flesh. You see how sickly he looks. He's blue and everything, right? When glorification is the idea of transformation. We become a new creature. We become a new creation. We have life. We have power. We're able to do things that we could not do before. In this case, he can hop. He can eat some bugs. He can be gracious. He can be patient. He can be loving. He can be sacrificial. This is the glory of the toad. Okay? But here's the thing. Transformation doesn't happen in isolation from the environment. Does that make sense? Transformation doesn't happen in isolation from the environment. Next slide. Okay, don't get too eager, okay? All right, there we go. So for him to go from being a tadpole to a toad also means for him to be transferred from the bog of shadows, to the kingdom of the sun, from the domain of the swamp to the kingdom of light. Okay? The transformation of the individual means also a transference of worlds. The transformation of the individual is a description of glorification. The transference is our sanctification. Now, transferring from one world to another is not just a matter of being moved from one place to another, but it's also coming under a new authority from your old authority. Let's get the next slide. So here, we have the prince of the power of the bog, okay? This crocodile. And we have the king of the jungle. For Ted to move from the swamp to the Edenic lands of the kingdom of the sun is for him to leave the authority of the prince of the power of the bog, okay? And to come under the authority of the king of the jungle. All right. I think, okay, so this is the relationship between glorification and sanctification. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, hopefully this illustration helps. Okay, what does present progressive glorification and what does present progressive sanctification look like? What does that look like? Let's continue on with the toad analogy. Glorification doesn't just happen in the past, but there's a present and progressive transformation of the individual until he becomes more and more like Christ. So let's get to the next slide. So this is our past glorification. We are transformed, right? We are a new creature, right? We're not the same. We can actually breathe air. We got some legs here, okay? And then progressive glorification is the process by which we are being changed more and more from one degree of glory to the next. Look how glorious this guy is. Look how happy he is, okay? He got 4 legs in there, everything, okay? Glorious, okay? Final glorification, next slide, is when we become who we are called to be, the fullness of glory, okay? Does it make sense? Now, sanctification, progressive sanctification, again, has this process that is characteristic of it. So let's get to the next slide. Sanctification, next one. This is past sanctification, definitive sanctification. When we go from the bog and we're able to walk on land, but we see that there's an overlap between the waters and the land, right? There's a disputed area, so to speak, 2 different territories, okay? Next slide. Progressive sanctification is the more and more we inch towards the Edenic lands, the kingdom of the sun, the more the change, the more we are removed from the waters, so to speak. And the last one, final sanctification, when we die, we leave the world entirely and we enter into paradise. Now, next slide. Now, this process of movement is also a movement away from the prince of the power of the bog, right, into the presence of the king of the jungle. Okay? And the thing is, the closer we are to the domain of the bog, right, the more we are influenced by the power of the old authorities. Next slide. Okay? So he influences us. But the closer we go to the king, the more we are being influenced and helped and supported and guided by him. Next slide. Okay. The role and the purpose of the Christian is to move towards Christ, to move towards God. But how often, even though we've been transformed, we seek to turn back and to follow the orders of our old master. The calling of the Christian is to draw closer to the Lord.